That is just like to.
That's okay.
It's okay. You have a just in case. It's about to be a party. Scott?
1 minute.
Oh,
No, we got 4 minutes, dude. Got plenty of time.
one shot a minute. Oh, man.
You know what makes it weird? It makes it like adds pressure is lights, right? When it's just like us, it's like
Oh, no, we're just hanging out.
yeah, but when you have like these lights and it's like camera.
No, it's the people walking by too, man. Because there's other people like, what's going on?
Can you see it when on camera?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
The people have been like.
Like performance art.
If you want, you can just say that we're going back to see it.
Yeah.
That is just halfway.
Good luck, dude.
I know, just say this. I have to say I've been exposed many times.
I'm vaccinated. Well, that doesn't protect you.
I'm not vaccinated.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I was vaccinated back in January.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. Arizona.
They had to,
It was easy, well, it was easier because people didn't want to get it.
oh, yeah.
So,
It was just a fly.
yeah, it was leftovers. It was
No, yeah, we got 3 minutes.
What is face from
You know
the
what?
mouth
I
up?
recognized the eyes. I
You
did.
know,
I did. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure. But how are you? Oh,
Is it on 7th?
on 9th Avenue.
Well, there. So I was over.
That's corner of 9th and Irving.
But
Right across from the Arizmendi Big Shop.
yeah, okay.
Cross station.
Yeah.
Yes, it still is. But they're, they don't really have anything going on.
Yeah.
So we're doing a collaboration, but it's really.
Does that mean you're not commuting anymore?
I live in Daly City now.
Oh my God.
I'm staying with friends. I live in Arizona. Yeah.
But,
Give it in.
and then you're right.
Yeah.
What is this on Instagram?
No, we're just putting it on Zoom.
Who's logging in though? Who's, I mean,
These are the people in the waiting room right now.
do I know them? I'm like, should I log in and talk shit?
Yeah.
No.
That's my cousin.
Isn't that so cute? No?
Yeah.
Oh, it looks great. I don't know how long I'll stick around, but I had a baby.
I know, I saw that.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. I'm like, that's why I have to probably rush home because I have to check on. I haven't heard from Mikey, which is either a good thing or a very bad thing. So I'm not gonna stick around to see your whole bit, but it's good to see you. And
When I saw you, I was like,
yeah, I'm like, oh, this is other Marissa. There's another Marissa at Off the Grid. So now there's only Marissa. There's only one Marissa off the grid now. Yeah. I'm gonna reach out because we're gonna have some work to do.
are you still doing contract work with Off the Grid?
No, I'm here.
Oh, you're here.
Yeah.
I'm general manager at Tropical Gardens.
Oh.
So,
Congratulations.
So yeah, we're gonna have.
Is there room for my Jeepney in there? Or I still have plans to finish that Jeepney?
Oh.
We will make room for
Yeah,
JP
make something happen.
Are you serious about JP? Are you serious?
30 feet long.
Yeah.
All right, 6 o'clock, and I'll let people in.
6 o'clock?
Yep. I'm gonna switch it to me first. So you steer the camera up there, got disconnected?
This one?
Yeah, the top one.
All right, this one, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Filipinos Feed the Front Lines and the SOMCAN Chef Demos. I'm going to be your host today, Desi Danganin. Welcome, everybody, to the live stream. This is actually a really special day. This is the first time we're debuting our streaming hub here at Balay Creative Studios. I'm going to switch the camera so you can see what I'm talking about. Oops, that is the top view, but this is the front view. We built this streaming hub literally 30 minutes ago, but over the past week, we've been designing this. And so we're really excited and proud to christen it with Chef Dennis Villafranca. Hey, Dennis, why don't you greet your audience?
Wait a second, is this live?
It is live.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dennis Villafranca, chef and owner of GP Guys Filipino Food. I'm a little nervous, but I just want to say that I'm really happy to be here and really glad I got to be the first one to do a live streaming cooking demo. And very excited. And this is have to say, it's a great space. Still a work in progress, but standing right here on Mission Street in the heart of Filipino Cultural District, feels really special. Glad to be here. Thanks for jumping on. I know a lot of you are friends and family. Thanks for watching. And there's people from all over the world actually who are connected. It's great. Want to get started?
Cool. So for those of you who are just joining us today, I would love to know where everybody's from. So why don't you get on the chat and let us know what city you're in right now. Chef Dennis and I were in Soma, Filipinas on Mission Street between 5th and 4th Street. Where else is everybody at? Put it up on the chat. Represent your neighborhood. I want to know. San Antonio, Texas. Oh, Sunset District of San Francisco. I see Atatet there. Where's Atatet at? Represent your neighborhood. We got 94103. That's Soma, Filipinas. We got Union City. We got Virginia Beach in Virginia. We got the Inner Richmond. Oh, we're going worldwide here. There's all kinds of different neighborhoods and locales here represented. And we got Soma. Awesome. We got San Francisco. So if anyone is in the 94103 and wants to say hi, we are actually streaming live off of Mission Street. So I'm going to switch the camera over to Dennis, and you can see the sidewalk right before you. That's actually the Westfield over there. So if you're nearby, wave your hand, say hi. There are people walking by. This is the first time we're actually prototyping our streaming hub here at Republica. Republica, for those who don't know, is a business incubator and art gallery that we're going to be building in this space. But in the meantime, while we wait for funding and construction to happen, we're doing a lot of experimental activations here. And one is creating a streaming hub. And this would not have been possible if it wasn't for some of our partners out there, in particular SOMCAN. If it wasn't for SOMCAN to approach us and say, hey, we got some funding to put together some chef demos, we wouldn't have built this. So thank you, SOMCAN, for making this possible. I know you weren't expecting us to build something out of this series, but here we are. And this is how we build community, by sharing resources together. And I think that that's one of the coolest things about Soma Filipinas. So why don't we get started? So today, what are we cooking, Dennis?
So today, so the whole goal of this is to try to cook something a little healthier. So what I'm going to do is a vegan Cinnagon, and something that I actually eat. I'm not vegan, but I like making a vegan Cinnagon. Cinnagon just has so much flavor in it, and mine is based on tamarind. It's tamarind based, and I use fresh tomatoes to give you that sour punch. And so I guess I'll get started. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cook rice in a pot. I think it's important that the first dish that we cook here is that, because the main part of any Filipino dish And most people are afraid to or intimidated by cooking rice in a pot without a rice cooker. It's actually very easy. You just got to get your portions right and it's about timing. So let's start. Probably have about, I think it's about 2 cups of rice. Just jasmine rice, right in the pot. I don't rinse it. I never rinse it because just never felt I needed it. It's very clean rice. Okay. All right, so when I portion out rice, I do 1 part rice, like say 1 cup of rice to 1.5 cups of water. And that's usually the ratio I use for jasmine rice. And then I actually double check that using the traditional Filipino measurement technique, which is using my finger. It's actually a little bit too much rice, too much water.
A little louder, Dennis.
A little louder, sorry. Okay. All I did was I took rice and some water. Like I said, 1 part rice to 1.5 parts water. Then we're gonna let that boil. And you want to make sure you stir it up because rice will clump. All right.
Are you using long grain, short grain, brown rice?
I always use long grain jasmine rice because I love the texture and the flavor. You can use those portions work out with really any type of rice. It doesn't really, it's like kind of like a baseline, and then you just kind of adjust and like use your index finger to measure it out using the Filipino technique, which by the way is you skim your finger along the top of the rice, and then the water should line up to that first line. And I know everyone's hand is a different size, but for me, it works out that you just line it up to that line and it works. Okay, so we're just gonna bring that to a boil. So I'm gonna leave that alone. Got it covered. Hopefully we don't start a fire here, but it will be okay. All right, so the rice is going. And then now, so the Cinnagon, because it's vegan and there's no meat in it, I really want to make sure that I build layers of flavor. And in order to achieve that, you got to really use some really flavorful vegetables. And I like to put a really hard sear on all the vegetables because it kind of caramelizes the vegetables and then gives you that a little more depth of flavor. I mean, I could easily just throw everything in a pot, boil it up, and it'll taste okay. But the thing is, when you start cooking your vegetables and you get like that nice brown color on it, it really, it kind of, you know, there's a fancy French term, it's called the Maillard reaction, which is like the sugars in the vegetable kind of caramelize and it develops like a deeper flavor. And I try to do that to almost all the vegetables that I put in there. And that's what's going to build the flavor. All right. So one of the first things I'm going to start with is an onion. This one's already clean. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a rough chop on it. Nothing too fancy. We're going to cook it pretty.
Now, is that a white onion or a yellow onion?
This one, no, not really. I prefer yellow onions because they're a little sweeter. You can use a red onion if you want, but I like to use yellow onions just because it has a sweeter flavor to it. Okay, so we got our onions. And I'm going to prep a little bit of garlic. I'm just going to smash it. First person to make this demo kitchen.
Now, Dennis, what inspired you to make a vegan Sinigang? I mean, you're known for lechon.
Yes. Well, you know, you can't eat lechon every day. And I do like vegetables. If it came down to it and the doctor told me that I had to go vegan, I would actually be okay, believe it or not. I do like vegetables. And, you know, when you do catering, you can't always serve pork. So you have to come up with vegetarian or vegan dishes. And I always go to Sinigang, like I said, because it just has a lot of flavor to it. All right, so I just put a little bit of canola oil in my pot. I'm using a cast iron pot because it holds heat very well. But you can use any pot. It could be a deep pot. This one, I got a low one, just so you can see what's going on inside. I'm going to heat that up, get it pretty hot. So I want to put a hard cook on these onions and so while I'm waiting for that, those onions in here.
If you weren't making a vegan Sinigang, what protein do you usually go to? Pork, do you go shrimp,
I like,
do lamb?
no, I don't, I'm not a big fan of lamb. When I make sinigang at home, I'll either do pork or beef. If I do pork, I'll do, of course, pork belly. Pork ribs also works very well. And pork has like a slightly sweeter flavor. Beef is more of like a heartier, more, I'd say almost like a more earthy sinigang. So what I did was when the rice came to a boil, I just turned it down to a low simmer. Just like that. And then I'm gonna let it cook for about 20, 25 minutes. I'm just gonna let it sit. I'm not gonna stir it. I'm not gonna open the lid. I'm just gonna let it cook and kind of, there's a Filipino term that my mother-in-law used to always say, you gotta let your rice make in, which basically means you're like when you wake up early in the morning and you don't want to crawl out of bed, you just want to kind of hide under the blankets. That's what I'm letting my rice do, letting it make in. Okay, so now my oil's nice and hot over here, so I'm going to throw in my onions. There we go. Now we're cooking. Now you're any kind of certain oil, is that olive oil? This one's canola oil. It has a very neutral flavor. Olive oil, I think it kind of gets a little bitter and the flavor kind of stands out too much. So canola oil is a nice neutral cooking oil, and you can get it pretty hot and it won't burn. So I don't know if you can see the top view on that, but I'm going to cook those onions really hard. I don't want that flavor to come out. I'll let it stick. I don't even want to move it around too much. All right. I'm going to hold up on the garlic because that'll burn really fast. As that's cooking, I'm going to take out, I guess you can call this the meat for my sinigang. These are king oyster mushrooms, one of my favorites. It's a very hardy mushroom. If you cook it, it almost has like a meat texture to it. And this is, these king oyster mushrooms is like the basis of my flavor for my sinigang. And is that easy to find in any supermarket? Yeah, so everything that I bought today, you can find in most major supermarkets. If you can get to an Asian supermarket, that's even better, especially for the king oyster mushrooms. You can really find these anywhere. None of these ingredients are hard to find.
I see that you're cutting that in the box cut section. Is that the way to?
Yeah, so what I'm doing is I'm creating more surface area on the mushroom because I'm going to try to sear it on all sides. I probably won't use all of this because this is a lot, but if you haven't tried king oyster mushrooms, you should really give it a try because it does have it has a good texture. It's a lot more chewy than other mushrooms. It tend to get kind of squishy. This really has a meaty texture to it. Okay. These onions, there you go. See? There you go. That's what I call them. A lot of good color on those onions. See that garlic in there, give that a little bit of a char. Okay, I'm going to put this aside. I'm going to make room for my mushroom. And I know you're thinking that I'm putting a lot of oil in here, but a lot of that oil is actually cooking. It's as the vegetables cook, it's releasing a lot of steam, and with that steam, cooking oil is actually leaving the pan. Okay, so I got my mushrooms in there. They're starting to cook. I'm going to season those a little bit right now as it cooks. Have a little kosher salt. Does it have to be kosher salt? Can it be any salt? I like kosher salt, diamond kosher salt in particular, because it has a good, it has good flavor. And it's not as salty as iodized salt, which I don't really like. Every time I try to cook with iodized salt, I always end up having really salty food because I use too much of it. And I like diamond kosher salt because I'm used to the texture. And you notice I don't really measure anything, just kind of throw it in. But when I grab diamond kosher salt, I know how salty it's going to be it's just based on experience. So that's the little chef tip. If you're gonna get used to like a certain type of salt, and that way when you're seasoning meat or vegetables, you get used to just by looking at it. When you throw on the salt, you know how salty that's gonna get. You know what kind of flavor. Like I said, because if I switch to iodized salt, guaranteed my dish is gonna come out salty. But with diamond kosher salt, I'm very, very familiar with the texture and just how much it is. Right? Make it a little bit of that. So everybody has access to like a chat room. Yeah, right? Yeah, people are asking which ingredients as an added. So first thing was sauteed onions. Yep, sauteed the onions, then the garlic, then the mushrooms, and the king oyster mushrooms. And then I threw a little bit of salt in there. About to throw in some black pepper. Just a little bit. The reason why I'm doing that now is it's gonna help actually infuse a lot of flavor in the mushrooms. And then if you can see that, it's getting pretty dark. And when I see that, I know that it's building and developing a lot of those flavors that I talked about. You can go with the camera so you can see that. Okay. So if you look at the top view, everything's getting pretty dark. All right, so this is rustic cooking. And you can smell it. So you were here, you would smell the onions kind of getting that deep, rich, caramelized flavor and aroma. And the mushrooms are just color on there is fantastic. How long have you been cooking down the vegetables now? What, 5, 10 minutes? Yeah, about 5, 10 minutes. Everything in here is pretty hearty, and especially the mushrooms. So what I'm going to do is once I'm happy with the color, which is getting really close, I'm going to add water to it. And we're going to cook that for a while and let the water really extract the flavor from the onions, the garlic, and the mushroom. All right. So for those who are watching, up with, what is the word Balay mean to you, if I get it? Put it on the chat room. Okay, so just added some water. Once again, I'm not measuring anything, but it doesn't really matter at this point. We're just trying to create the base for the Sinigang. So what we have now is the start of some really good mushroom soup. Okay, we're going to bring that to a boil. Okay. Some of the other vegetables that I brought for this is I have some, we have the top view going. Yeah. Got some cherry tomatoes, or they might be grapes. I like the small ones because they have a lot of flavor. They're sweeter than the bigger ones, and they have a lot of umami. A lot of people talk about umami, but tomatoes is one of those vegetables that just really has a deep, savory flavor naturally. And have some green beans. I already trimmed the ends off of that. I have one of my favorite vegetables, kabocha squash. What is this in Tagalog? I forgot what it's called. Anybody remember what this is in Tagalog. But anyway, little tip on kabocha squash. When you go to the grocery store,
Calabasa.
there you go. Who said that? Who answered that?
There's someone from SF USD.
Nice, yes, kalabasa. You'd be tempted to grab like a really bright, green, pretty looking kabocha squash from the grocery store. Those are actually very underripe and they'd be very yellow, and the flesh inside will be not very tasty, kind of bland. I always pick the ugliest one I can find, but not too soft, because if it's really soft, it would be overripe. But you want to find one that's kind of pale. The yellow just means it was sitting on the ground and it didn't get any sunlight. But all those blemishes on there, it doesn't do anything bad to it. It's actually a good thing. But this is a good, ripe calabasa that I will chop up. I also have some kale, which I love. Very popular vegetable, especially right now. And then I have some daikon radish I've already peeled. This is, I don't know what this is in Tagalog either. I forget. Okay, so
What do we call kale in Tagalog?
kale.
We call it expensive.
Yeah, it's called what? But I do love kale. It has a really good texture. It's very hearty if you cook it right. As long as you don't overcook it. If you overcook it, it turns dark and some of the bitter flavors kind of. That's not a good thing. So we're going to actually throw this in towards the end. And part of Cinnagon that I really love is my Anaheim peppers. Not too spicy, actually a little sweet. And when I'm eating Cinnagon, I know it's not vegan, but I take this after it's cooked and I dunk it in my bowl with my fish sauce, with my patis. And then I kind of crush it in there, and then it really adds a lot of flavor to mine. And that's what we're putting in our Cinnagon. So now that this is simmering, I'm going to let that go. It'll let the water get in there and release all those flavors from those vegetables. I'm going to chop this kabocha squash, which is very scary. All right, so what I do is I pick a side, and then I'll just kind of stick my knife in on one side and then work my way. I'm not going to try to cut all the way through because it's.
Watch those fingers.
Always keep your fingers away from the sharp end and out of the way, right? So if you notice, I keep my hand flat just so that I don't accidentally curl it under the blade. There you go with that nice deep yellow-orange color. This one's a really good kabocha squash. Really happy with this one.
You don't need to peel the rind off?
I don't, because when you cook it, it actually it breaks down too. And I had to Google that to make sure it was okay. And it is fine to leave the rind on the kabocha squash. You don't have to eat it, but if you do eat it, it tastes like kabocha. And when you cook it down, it actually softens up. So yes, I leave the rind on. And cut it at this stage, so basically I quartered it. This is when I'll take off the skin. I'm just gonna read from there, pop it off from that end, pop it off from this side. The only part of the seeds that you can. So for this pot, I think half of this small kabocha squash would be more than enough. So I'm gonna put this one back. Okay, so now the insides, I will take a spoon and just carefully scrape it out. That comes out in one shot. I don't know if you've ever tried this before, but you can actually take the seeds from a kabocha squash and roast them, and they're very tasty.
But you wouldn't want to put it into the Cinnagon.
No, not in the city. It's as a separate snack. But I never have the patience to get in there and clean out the seeds. Okay, so all I did was just scoop out the seeds and kind of like the pulp on the inside. And go in there. Okay, so for this dish, for the kabocha squash, I'm going to cut them into fairly large chunks, because if you cut them too small, they will start to fall apart and disintegrate in your soup. So there, there. there. That's a pretty good chunk. So it's like a 1-inch square. That's what I like to put in my soup.
Is there any reason why you're using a butcher?
Here, I was just thinking about that. So I have a lot of knives. I love to collect knives. And as a matter of fact, this is the very first knife that my wife got me when I started cooking at home. I still use it today. And it is the knife that's on my arm, my tattoo.
Oh.
That's the same knife. So this is my very first real knife that I ever got, given to me by my wife, Trish, who is watching us right now. Thanks, Trish. Okay, so going back to, so I do like that knife. It's good for fine cutting work, but this is a Chinese vegetable cleaver. I just started getting into these, and you go to the Asian market and you see a bunch of these. And I always wondered which ones were the good ones and which ones were the bad ones, because I know they're pretty cheap. I was reading an article somewhere, and they talked about the Shibazi Chinese vegetable knives, and they were saying how it's like good quality and a very reasonable price. And this knife was $15 at the Asian store, and it is a very good knife made out of very good steel, even stamped on there. And as long as you keep it sharp, it chops through anything. And it's very stable. I'm very comfortable with it, and it's one of my favorite go-to knives now. And then a lot of the things that you see on social media now, that guy cooking in the forest, he has that big knife that has like it's steep and pointy. Same thing. This one just cuts off on the end, but it's a very, very good knife. I highly recommend it. $15 versus a German knife that I love very much too, but it's much cheaper than that. It's just a workhorse, and it's especially cutting something like kabocha squash. Don't worry about chipping the blade. And stuff like that. Just to bring my hand away from the board. Got kabocha squash with the rind still on it. Okay. Got a bowl.
That's simmering or is it boiling?
It's a really low simmer. You don't really need to do a hard boil because you're just gonna evaporate it. Yeah, I'm gonna put this in soon. Just waiting a little bit before I throw that in there. Now I'll do the kale later, that'll be last. Okay, tomatoes. So I love tomatoes. Now talking about the flavor that you get out of the tomato. And one of the tricks I like to do is really release some of that umami goodness. It's I like to char my tomatoes before I throw them in the dish. I'll show you what I mean. So I'm just cutting them in half. Really small size. And
What type of tomatoes are these again? These heirlooms?
these are just grape tomatoes. Very sweet. That's really good. So I cut them in half.
I mean, would it affect the taste if you just got like tomatoes or whatever tomatoes available?
Oh yeah, those are good too. I just feel that the smaller the tomato, the more concentrated the flavor. Sometimes the bigger ones, they get kind of mealy, like the texture on it is this weird squishy flavor, texture flavor that I don't like. And I find them very bland. But
Especially if you're doing something with no meat, right?
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay, so this, I think, I'm gonna do wrong. All right, so here are my tomatoes. I'm gonna get a metal bowl or pan. Right. Then, it's not something everybody has, but I have one of these and I love it. Actually, I own several. This is a little blowtorch.
What are you gonna do there?
So most people use this just for like creme brulee. I like to take vegetables or meat and put a little char on it. So it's like I'm grilling the tomatoes without a grill. Right? Now, if you can see that, I'm actually, yeah, you can hear it popping here, cracking. You hear that snap, crack, and pop? That's the skin of the tomatoes as I'm charring it. Kind of shake it around a little bit. And what I'm doing is same thing, just like how I browned the onions, the garlic, and the mushrooms, I'm releasing a lot of the, I guess you can say like I'm releasing the sugars in the tomato, kind of intensifying that flavor. So it's basically grilled tomatoes without a grill. And this is something I like to do with a lot of my vegetables. I'm really not expecting you to figure that out. But be very, very careful with it. It is very dangerous, it's very hot. It's very, very fun to use. I think at one of the undiscovered events, I grilled elote. And instead of cooking it on a grill, I would fold it up and then hit it with a torch. And people love that.
People are asking if you don't have a blowtorch, can you just like toast it in a pan?
You can, but it's not going to get hot enough. I would suggest broiling it in the oven. If you have a toaster oven, that would be perfect because you can get it right up close to the heating element and get that charring effect on the tomato. So that's really what I'm trying to achieve. If you can see that.
Oh, let me change the camera really quick. There you go.
All right, you see that? So you can see it's charred a little bit on the skin. So all those dark bits on there, that's flavor. That's added flavor that I've released from the tomatoes. And that's why I use the torch. Yes, you can broil it. If you have a grill, you can also throw it on the grill. It's just really convenient to get the torch, but these torches are easy to find. This is probably 15 bucks, especially at the Asian store. They have a lot of these. And it's just a regular butane canister, same thing that's inside these cassette stoves that I have. So these are easy to find. This is easy to find, and the canisters are very easy to find. And if you're serious about cooking, I should do like a web series on how to cook with a big torch. There's a lot of things you can do with it.
Can you make rice with a blowtorch?
Yeah, a little teeny tiny pot maybe. But I have used a blowtorch to toast rice in a pan. I've used that a lot. If you do a lot of sous vide cooking, blowtorch is, I think it's an essential tool because when you sous vide something, you're basically just boiling it. And the torch is really good to get nice color on your meat and or your other food, but it's very handy. Okay, so this is a nice boil that I got going here. I can smell it. Smells delicious. Smells like mushroom soup. And then because the kabocha squash takes a while to cook, I'm actually going to throw them in now.
Like how long does that take? Is that like 30 minutes?
I'm
getting hungry.
Maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Okay. So I salted this a little bit. And then one important thing that you got to do, and this is why I don't really measure that much on my seasoning, because it all depends on your dish. I season as I go, but in order to find out how much seasoning you got to put in there, you got to taste it. That's good. Needs more salt. Once again, I would say if you want to ask for measurements, this is probably, that's half a teaspoon. I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon of salt.
When are you gonna put in the mamacita packet?
Okay, so to be honest, if I'm at home making Cinnagon, I will whip out the mamacita packet. It's great stuff. It has MSG in it, but I like MSG. But today I'm not using that. So what I'm going to use today for the kind of like the real punch of flavor for the Cinnagon is this is concentrated tamarind paste. Really good stuff. And there's really nothing in here except for tamarind some preservatives. Only a little bit. So it's not bad for you. There's no salt, there's no MSG. But it's really just, it's a concentrated tamarind paste. If you can see that. It's really good stuff. I love this. I've made barbecue sauce out of this and it was delicious. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put that in the pot now.
What,
2, 3, 4, and a dot. Okay.
4 plus.
And like I said, this stuff is pretty intense flavor. And I like my Cinnagon really sour. Like when you eat it, I just want my eyes to kind of like squint a little bit from the sourness.
Greg is asking, where can we get tamarind paste in San Francisco?
In San Francisco, most, even the small Asian markets carry it. This one is, what brand is it? This one is Lee brand. This is probably one of the more popular brands that I've found. It's a product of Thailand. I have seen it in some Safeways, believe it or not. Depending on your neighborhood, I've seen it at Safeway, but I got this one at 99 Ranch. But most Asian markets, even the small ones, have a type of tamarind concentrate. Very, very easy to find.
Max is asking, is it just tamarind or is it a mix?
It's just tamarind. It's not a soup mix, so there's no artificial flavors or salt in it. It's really just tamarind paste. I think what they do is they take a big pot and they cook down the tamarind pods until they extract all the flavor and reduce that. So it's a thick paste. Not at all hard to find. All right, you can see that my Sinigang is taking on a really dark, rich color.
Yeah, from here, it looks almost brownish.
It's brown. And the brownness is coming from the tamarind paste and the cooked vegetables. But that brown means flavor. Yeah, that's good. More salt.
Clarice is asking, instead of just putting tamarind mix, is it okay if we put the Sinigang sampalok mix?
Yes. Yes. So sampalok is tamarind in Filipino. There is one that Nor makes, which is it's a sampalok paste, and it's the same thing. It's just pure tamarind with no other added ingredients. And if you have the Mamacitas or the Nor instant Sinigang packet, throw it in there too. There's nothing wrong with using that. Like I said, I use it myself. I like the flavor.
So Dennis, what have you been doing during the pandemic?
Oh man, I gotta say, 2020 was just like with most others in the world. 2020 was very challenging. More challenging, I guess, for us because you know what we do is we serve the public. So not being able to cook for people really put a strain on the industry. And for the first half, you know, we were on lockdown just like everybody else. Actually, in Arizona is where I was. But I came back to the Bay in June, and I was fortunate enough to be able to participate in a program called Great Plates, which we provide food for senior citizens here in San Francisco. And it was a regular thing. I was able to do that once or twice a week. And we just cook ready to eat plates, cool them down, and then it gets delivered directly to San Francisco residents. And it's a program that's all across California. And I'm part of the San Francisco-based program. And that's really been keeping us afloat, really. Just enough to sustain the business to keep us going. I'm very fortunate and I appreciate that program a lot. And then other than that, it was really just trying to survive and kind of get creative on ways to keep going. I was supposed to, in 2019, I was in the process of opening up a commercial commissary kitchen in Pleasanton to do catering gigs and to support my events at like off the grid or undiscovered. But that all fell through, and I had to really find a place where I could settle in and just be able to work. And you know, the key to survival at this time is to really reach out and work with, kind of take advantage of your community. And I was fortunate to have friends that had a restaurant that they weren't using in San Leandro. And I used that for most of 2020. And because of that relationship that I built with them, I'm on right now working on opening up a collaborative restaurant space here in San Francisco with the same people. And it's at the Cross Station restaurant in the Inner Sunset. And, you know, it was something that just kind of developed and was born out of necessity during COVID. And it's a really great opportunity where somebody is helping me, and at the same time, I'm helping them to kind of rebuild and reestablish the restaurant, which really suffered also during COVID. And you know, it's been a process, and I just got news yesterday that my permits are going to be coming through soon. I got my inspection tomorrow, so it looks like hopefully by the end of next week, April 1st or 2nd, we'll be able to open up our spot in San Francisco, where we're going to be open every day, lechon for everyone. And it's a collaboration with Jeepney Guy and Malasa, Filipino cuisine, and Cross Station. We're sharing a space, and we're gonna work together creating menus and different events in that space. But I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm really happy to be here in San Francisco, where we've really the heart of everything that's happened with you guys. Like I said, Undiscovered was just right around the corner at the Mint. I don't know how many years ago was that? 4 years. 4 years ago.
Going on 5.
Going on 5. Yep, we were there on the first Undiscovered. We had what, 10,000 people show up, and it was a painful, wonderful experience. But and that all happened here in San Francisco, so I can't really imagine Jeepney Guy being anywhere but San Francisco.
Got some fans outside.
So I'm going to add a little bit of water to this because it's been cooking down. Okay, yeah, so yeah, 2020 was just a matter of just trying to survive and keep the business going. You know, it was hard, but I'm very fortunate that we were able to make it through, and really blessed to have friends who really came out to support and help us out. It's good to have friends.
It's good to have you back.
Thank you. It's great to have a friend like Desi. Every once in a while, I'll get a call or an email from Desi with some crazy idea that he has. And if I can make it work, I'll make it work. Always try to be there.
Well, you're the first one trying out our streaming hub, so
Yeah.
thanks for being our guinea pig.
Oh, thanks. I don't know. How's the audio out there? Can you guys hear me okay? Should I talk louder? Am I too loud? Okay, so here's the kale, right? This is just regular green kale. A lot of people don't like kale because they find it bitter or the stalks are kind of hard to eat. It's the really thick ones, I'll chop them off because it is hard to chew. It's a little fibrous. I'm gonna take off the really thick parts.
Vanessa saying the audio is good.
Okay, thanks, Vanessa.
There's a. Yeah.
Is that Ted from Canada?
It's Ted from Soma Filipinas.
Oh, okay. I have a cousin in Canada who is. Thought maybe she was watching.
Why are we putting kale instead of like spinach or bok choy?
Okay, so kale because I like it, and it's a very hearty vegetable. And because I'm not putting any meat in this dish, I really try to put the ingredients in it. I want them to stand out on its own. Spinach, if you cook it too long, it gets all squishy and a little slimy, and it just doesn't really have much after you cook it. So this is about, I don't know, that much kale. It looks like a lot to fit in this small pot, but the thing about kale is it's gonna cook down a lot. All right, so we got kale ready to go. Not gonna throw that in yet. It's gonna be one of the last items I put in there. I'm just getting it ready. And I left it, you know what, I should talk about it a little bit more.
How many ounces of kale is that?
Like my weight. Probably 2 ounces.
All right.
We got that going. All right, so the tomatoes. I think it's time to throw the tomatoes in because I'm gonna cook them down a little bit. So our charred tomatoes, and if you look in that charring process, it created a lot of juice. So throw that in there. Yeah. All right. Don't forget anything. Oh, my daikon radish. Don't forget that. I'm gonna just, I peeled these already. And I'm gonna cut them into like, maybe these are 1/4 inch slices. Does anybody know what daikon radish is in Tagalog? It's not sinkamas. Sinkamas is jicama.
Labanos. That is labanos.
Oh. Thank you, Ted.
And Elisa's asking if kale is available or we just don't like the taste of kale.
You can skip it. You can put spinach in here too if you like spinach or bok choy. But I think the key here is you put the green leafy vegetables in towards the end because you don't want to overcook it.
What about chard?
Oh yeah, I love chard. Chard works just as well. It'll cook the same as the kale. Very hearty vegetable. If I didn't have kale, I would be using chard. Okay. So we have left. I just put the labanos in the pot. That's going to slowly cook too, and it's going to absorb all of the delicious tamarind broth. So if you look at this again, if you can go on the top view, this does not look like a traditional Cinnagon.
Yeah, it's pretty brown.
It's brown. It's very thick, a little hearty. If you want to make it, if you want to thin it out a little bit, you can. You can use a bigger pot. Add more water, but just like season accordingly. Trying to taste it again. Kabocha looks like it's cooking very nicely. And as I add more vegetables in, it's adding more liquid, it's absorbing everything. And I'm gonna balance it out again with a little bit more salt. It's probably 2 teaspoons. And maybe thinking that's a lot of salt in there. But then again, it's kosher salt. So kosher salt has a lot of volume to it, very fluffy. So it's not like iodized salt, which is very compact and a little bit goes along.
Someone is asking, can you also sub in the che?
Pechay? Yes. So I learned that pechay is pak choy. Yes, you can do that too. Again, towards the end, unless you like your greens really, really soft. So any hearty green leafy vegetable will work in this. Bok choy, pechay, spinach, chard. What else is out there? Beet greens, mustard greens, all of that works. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more tamarind paste. So just looking at this container, I would say I have about,
That's like 6 scoops now, right?
I know,
7.
probably almost a cup. Tamarind paste. Like I said, I like it really sour.
Pat is suggesting Cancon. Is that a good substitute too?
That's a great one if you can find it. I think that's I think they call that water spinach. I love Kangkong. I do a lot. You can definitely use that if you can find it. Then if anyone's wondering what kind of pot this is, I found this at an Asian market. It's they use it for sukiyaki. It's a heavy cast iron pot, and I'm gonna buy more of these. And it was only $30 for this really nice cast iron pot. Even has handles on it. Okay, so that's going.
Are you gonna serve Cinnagon in your new restaurant outpost?
You know what I started doing was serving it as a side dish for my meat dishes, like our roasted pork belly lechon or our grilled chicken adobo, even our steamed salmon. I would do just a really simple sinigang with tomatoes and kale in tamarind broth, and I would cook that and then serve that as like as the vegetable side for my dishes. And I really liked it because the sourness and the heartiness of the sinigang really helps to cut the richness of the pork belly. I don't know how long this is going to go, but I'm actually going to turn off. I don't see any more steam coming out from it, so I know that the rice has absorbed all the water. And then once again, just going to let it make kind of let it sit and just kind of reabsorb all the steam that's being developed.
Emelita is asking, is it possible to add agave and talbos ng kamote?
Yes, so I was thinking about that this morning of getting some and adding it to it. There was already a lot of vegetables, but then usually I find when you add those, it really thickens up the broth, especially the gabi. But some people like that because it has like almost like you added okra to it, which is another thing that you can add. So for this dish, really any vegetable would work. There are no rules as to what you can, just like with any cooking, it's what you have available and what you like the textures. And there's really nothing, there's no vegetable that I can think of that wouldn't go well in this dish. Except for iceberg lettuce. Yeah, I hate iceberg lettuce. But any green root vegetables would work well in this. You can put carrots in here. You can put parsnips, might be a little weird.
Arugula?
Arugula, a little too bitter. It doesn't cook well. That's something you want to eat kind of raw. Maybe at the end you can finish it with arugula, like put it on top. Some bean sprouts would be great on this.
Brussels sprouts?
Brussels sprouts, yeah, Brussels sprouts, just little cabbage. That would work well in here. Just cut them in half. Would actually probably taste pretty good.
Your wife wants to know what happened to the eggplant.
Oh yeah, where's my eggplant? Thanks, Trish. Look, I have eggplant. Who's hiding in the back? So eggplant is great in Sinigang. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut it. I totally forgot about the eggplant. I'm gonna cut it kind of thin so it cooks faster. And just like with the other ingredients, when I cook eggplant, I like to kind of give it a good sear also. But since I totally forgot about the eggplant, I'm just gonna slice them. You don't really have to salt them before putting it in because it's gonna absorb a lot of the broth. So let's put in eggplant. And I cut it on the bias, on an angle, because it looks fancy. Actually, so here's another tip. If you want something to cook faster, cut it into smaller pieces. All right, so I'm gonna tuck that in there. Ooh, this pot is looking very hearty. That's gonna take about 5 minutes to cook. I think I need a bigger pot.
Yeah, it looks like it's gonna overflow.
It's gonna overflow with flavor. All right. All right, I'll overflow a little bit, you know.
So what's your other kind of go-to Asian soup? Northeast,
Tinola. I love tinola. Chicken tinola.
Actually, chicken tinola is going to be one of our featured dishes next in the series.
Ooh,
Deanna Sison of Miss Issa Little Skillet is going to
Ah.
be demonstrating chicken tinola.
maybe I'll stop by for that.
If it's not Filipino, would it be ramen or pho?
Ah,
Or would it be like tom yum?
so a lot of people don't know, but I was born in Okinawa, Japan. And I do love ramen, but I think I've just eaten way too much of it because there's so many great ramen places here in San Francisco. If it came down to it, I think I would get pho. I like the simple, clean flavors of pho. And I do like the rice noodles in pho. So yeah, I would say I prefer pho over ramen. But I do like ramen. Tom yum,
I mean, that's sour.
it's sour, but it has like a sweetness to it that I kind of get tired of quickly. But it's very tasty though, and it is sour. I think it's the kaffir lime leaves in there that are a little too intense for me. All right, so that's going. I'm gonna put the greens in last. I'm gonna throw in 1 Anaheim pepper. I leave it whole because it is one of the more sweeter, milder peppers, but there is some spice to it. I don't want to release that into the soup, but I do want to squeeze that in there. Probably would have done this a little sooner so it breaks down a little more. Like I said, because I like to smash it into my piece. All right, how are we on time? How long have I been doing this?
We've been on for an hour and getting hungry.
I thought this would only take 30 minutes. All right, so we're almost good. So that's going. I'm gonna throw in green beans. Depending on how I'm serving the dish, I do like to blanch my green beans first and then flash it in cold ice water because it keeps it bright green and helps to kind of maintain a good texture. They don't get squishy. But since we're gonna serve this right away, I'm just gonna put them right in the pot. Let's go in there.
Greg wants to know, what can you do to make it extra spicy?
Oh, you could put in jalapenos and cut peppers open and put them in there, seeds and all. It'll make it spicy. Jalapenos would taste great in this soup. All right, there goes the kale. Looks like I thought this was gonna take like 30 minutes. Now we know.
Have you ever tried eating Cinnagon with noodles instead of rice?
You can definitely do that. I did think about that too this morning when I was shopping, just to make it a little different, and it's very comfortable. I would say a rice noodle in here versus like a wheat based, like an egg noodle, might be a little too much. There goes our clock, starting with a little bit slow.
Like a vermicelli noodle?
Vermicelli, yeah, like a glass noodle, I think would go well. You know, I was planning on putting a little bit of sugar in there to balance out the sourness, but it doesn't need it. I think because of the other ingredients in tomatoes. So if you look, if you go on the overhead view, you can see the kale is already starting to break down.
Yep.
Start to cook. I don't like to overcook the kale because I like that texture, kind of chewiness. Okay. So there's two ways you can eat this. You can put the rice on a plate and the soup in the bowl, or you can put everything in the bowl. The rice and the soup, which is how my daughter likes it. So I'm gonna do it that way. Put the rice in the bowl. Here you go. Look at that. Perfectly cooked jasmine rice without a rice cooker.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
So if people ask me what my favorite food is, I could easily say rice is probably one of my favorites. It goes great with everything.
Would it be crazy to add tamarind paste to the rice while it's cooking?
No, that would be good. Then you would have to season it with a little bit of salt to kind of balance that out. So what I would do is I would make a tamarind broth separately and get those flavors right, like season it to how you want it, add salt, a little pepper. Once you get the flavor of that good, then you can use that as instead of just plain water in your pot to put the rice. And it's like Sinigang area. So there's the rice. And I'm gonna start cleaning. Pepper, I'm gonna put that on the side.
So is the pepper like a meat? Like a hunk of meat?
It's like a hunk of meat on your plate. I probably should have cooked the pepper longer, so it breaks down a little bit. So, just kale. Side, get some eggplant. Tomatoes and the 5-cone radish. Dig up some of those mushrooms.
You know, for some of the viewers who are in the 94103, there might be some leftover on, so
Yeah,
if you're not far from 5th and Mission, come on by.
yeah, bring a container.
Oh, yeah.
Vegan Cinnagon. It's very thick, hearty soup.
Is there any kind of drink that you would, like, if you were to pair this with a wine or a beer?
I would say I'm a beer drinker. Something on the dry, crisp side, like a lager or pilsner, like Cinnagon. For the wine, something probably some on the drier side too. Nothing too sweet, like a white. I think a red would kind of conflict with the sourness of the soup.
Oh, someone is asking, where is the patis?
Well, if I could find a vegan patis, I would have included the patis. I do have something though special to add to this because so this is a vegan sinigang. I showed you how to make a vegan sinigang with all of the vegetables and trying to build up the flavor. But really, if I was to eat this at home, there's one ingredient that I would add to this really make it special. And it's a piece of grilled pork belly. I had to do it. So this is pork belly that I braised in tamarind broth earlier, and then after I got the right texture, I seared it on a hot cast iron skillet. And now it's vegan sinigang with pork belly.
I guess you don't need patis if you got pork.
Well, now you really need the patis. I wish I had some. If they had some at Target, I would have bought some. There you go. I don't know if you still have any lighting, but there's the vegan sinigang.
Yep, it is.
If you want to keep it vegan, a little bit of soy sauce as your sausawan would work too. But yeah, this is one of my favorite ingredients. There you go, vegan sinigang with extra pork belly. Any questions? Anybody?
Emelita said it's going to be yummy with the pork belly. What's the address of your new shop in the Inner Sunset?
Okay, so the address is 1336 9th Avenue. It's right by one of the main entrances of Golden Gate Park, 9th Avenue, corner of 9th and Irving. If you follow us on Instagram, just Cheat Me Guy, we're going to start posting announcements on our opening this week, along with menu. And anytime we have any special events at the location, we'll post it there. We do have outdoor dining. San Francisco just jumped into the orange tier, which lets us do, what is it, 50% capacity inside. So there is some indoor, but our outdoor dining outside in the front will be available. And plus we have some patio dining in the back. And you can, I'm gonna link up with DoorDash so you can get it delivered if you're not in the immediate area. And we also have online ordering on our website, jeepneyguy.com, where you can pre-order your dishes from our menu for pickup.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you, Dennis.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody, for hanging out with us today. I'm really, really happy that I got to do this. And looks like it turned out pretty good.
Yep.
Could have been a disaster, but no, I think it worked out.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Big
guys.
shout out to SOMCAN for making this happen. Without SOMCAN support, we would have never built this streaming hub and organized all these chefs. We're going to be doing this for the next 4 months or so, or maybe even longer. The next chef demo will be Alex Rototo of the Lumpia Company, and he's going to show us how to cook lumpia in an air fryer. And you never caught Alex in a cooking demo. He's really entertaining. So check us out next month, every fourth Thursday. And don't forget, we're also doing this to promote Filipinos Feed the Front Lines. It's our campaign to stabilize all our different Filipino food businesses and get food to all of those in need. And we have all kinds of cool things. Right now we have a Learning Hit Neon shirt. It's an exclusive drop. So show your love and support for all our heroes and sheroes. And we'll catch you next month. Peace out. Signing off from Somos Filipinas here on Fifth and Mission at the Balay Creative Studios in New Public.